The San Antonio Spurs' 11-game losing streak finally came to an end on Thursday evening, with the Spurs having a few days off and going back home to the AT&T Center and defeating the Houston Rockets by 9 points. What's up, everyone? This is Paul Garcia from Project Spurs. The Spurs finally got their win. It's been a very long time. Like I said, 11 games in a row. Let's go ahead and jump right into this game and see what happened for the Spurs to finally end this losing streak. So before tip-off, what was the situation for both teams? So the Spurs are still missing multiple key players. Jakob Poeltl and Jeremy Sohan continue to be out with those injuries, and then Devin Vassell was announced that he was going to be out for this game as well. He was also dealing with an injury, and we do want to note that the Rockets were favored by 2 points, so the Rockets were the favorite on the road here in San Antonio. And we'll go through a quick recap here, and this is basically the story of the game. It was pretty close for most of the night until the second half when San Antonio completely took control. So in the first quarter, as you can see there, it's a very close game. At the 6-minute mark, the Rockets are up by 1 point. Keldon Johnson was already showing that he was going to be attacking early. He had 6 points by this point, and he was mainly attacking in the paint against the Houston defense. By the end of the first quarter, the Rockets are only up by 5, so close game. Second quarter comes, and now it's not only Keldon who's attacking the Rockets defense, but he has Tre Jones helping him out as well. Tre continued to attack the Rockets defense as well. They were both just putting pressure on the rim against Houston. And so by the midway point of the second quarter, the Rockets are barely holding onto a 1 point lead. Then right by halftime, the Rockets are only up by 3. Again, a very close game. By this point, Keldon's already up to 19 points with 14 paint points. And then Tre's up to 17 points with 10 paint points. So again, they're just continuing to attack the Rockets' defense. Third quarter, the first 6 minutes are very competitive for both teams. The Spurs actually take the lead early in the third quarter, and they're up by 3 midway through the quarter. And by this point, Keldon has 25 points and Tre has 20 points. Again, they're both continuing to put pressure on the Rockets' defense. Then the game explodes for San Antonio. The Spurs go up by 13 by the end of the third quarter. You just see their lead start to slowly increase. They're up by 8, then they're up by 11, then they're up by 14. So they go up by 13. And the fourth quarter starts, and they just completely just take over, especially the shooting of Doug McDermott from outside with him back and healthy. Also, Josh Richardson helping out there. So, you just see their leads slowly start to creep up to 20. It's 15, 16, 17, 18, and then it gets to 20. And then, it was over pretty much by the 4:20 mark of the fourth quarter. The Houston coach, he takes out Houston's coach. He takes out the starters basically and puts in the end of the bench players like Boban and a few other players. And they actually play pretty well, those end of the bench players. But they bring the Spurs' lead down, but the Spurs eventually win by 9. It never gets to like crunch time or anything like that. So it's over. The Spurs' losing streak. They prevented history from happening, because again, if they would have lost 14 in a row, that would have been a new franchise worst record for a 14-game losing streak. But it's now everything's good for them. They've at least won a game, should I say? Not good, but at least it's over. The losing streak following that for almost like a month of basketball, it seemed like. All right, so let's talk about the leading scorers. And like we mentioned multiple times here, Keldon really had a great night for San Antonio. This for him, maybe this is a turnaround, because again, he had a pretty good night, even though they lost pretty badly. San Antonio against Phoenix, he had I think 27 points in that game. And even Coach Pop, I was reading some quotes from Tom Orsborn of the San Antonio Express News. He mentioned how Pop said that Keldon was really quick with his decision making. He just caught it, quickly observed, and then just attacked the rim pretty much most of the night. And you can see here, he put a lot of pressure on Houston's defense. He scores 20 paint points. 20 of the 60 points from the paint for San Antonio. He also, when he did take threes, he was making them pretty efficiently. So he scores 9 points on the 3-point line for 32 points for Keldon Johnson, the leading scorer. Tre Jones was also like Keldon, attacking the Rockets' defense with 14 paint points. He also had his 3-point shot with 6 points from 3. He ends up with 26 for the night. Something that Joe Garcia and I talked about in the Spurs cast was that, the Spurs' 3-point shooting is just going to be struggling when they're missing a lot of their key shooters, especially Doug McDermott and Josh Richardson. Well, Doug and Josh were back in the lineup tonight, and even their first game back, even though they missed a few games, they both contribute 9 points from the 3-point line, and that helps the Spurs win the 3-point line by 9 points, and they each come off the bench with 12 points. Romeo Langford got the start, and he ends up with 11 points, and then Zach Collins was also starting at the center spot with 10 points. And Charles Bassey is a player we're going to talk about here later on in this video. He ends up with 10 points, but I want to talk about just the efficiency that he had in scoring those 10 points. For the Rockets, their high man was Jabari Smith Jr., the rookie, with 23 points. Alperen Şengün with 16, and then you had Jalen Green with 14, Eric Gordon with 14, and Kevin Porter Jr. with 12 points. And so the big thing for the Spurs was that 3-point line. They finally won that battle. It's been a while since they've won the 3-point line. They outscored the Rockets by 9 points there, and so that was the biggest margin there when we look at the scoring areas between the two teams. I'm not going to go through shot locations because I made a mistake and forgot to put the Spurs' shot location. So I do want to know one thing, which we're going to get into in the data regarding the shot location. Spurs did shoot 70% of the paint, and that was actually huge for them, their accuracy. So again, they just weren't afraid of that Rockets defense. They continued to attack the Rockets defense, especially Keldon and Tre Jones. They knew that they could have a good night against that Rockets defense. So that was one key that even though I don't have the stats available, that was one key that I wanted to mention there regarding the Spurs' defense. All right, so who were your standout players, your top 3 players for San Antonio? You had Tre Jones there, 35 minutes. He scores 26 points on just 16 shots, gets 3 rebounds, 5 assists for the team, 1 foul and no turnovers. Keldon Johnson had a great night, like I mentioned, 35 minutes. He scores 32 points on just 21 shots, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 foul, and then he did have 3 turnovers. And then Charles Bassey, like I mentioned, he comes off the bench in just 21 minutes. He had 10 points on just 3 shots. Now, he did get to the free throw line for 4 attempts, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I know he had the 4 fouls, 1 steal, and then this is a big one. 4 blocks. Again, a team high 4 blocks. 4 of the teams, I think 7 blocks. Coach Pop, after the game, according to Tom Osborne's reporting, said that this is basically it seemed like this is one of Charles Bassey's best games on both ends of the floor off the bench so far this season. So again, those are your top 3 players for San Antonio. They had 3 players play very well, considering they were still missing Devin Vassell and they were missing Pirtle and Jeremy Sohan. All right, so on offense, what looked good for the Spurs compared to their other 25 games, now that it's 25 games of the season, they held on to their lead. They went up by double digits in the second half, and they're now 7-4. So that's a successful record when they're leading by double digits. They are also now 7-4 when winning or tying the 3-point line. So again, we note that, like I mentioned, if you watch these videos over and over, they're 0 and I think it's like 0-14 when they lose the 3-point line. So that's that's obviously a sign that they're going to lose the game if they can't win the 3-point battle. But when they win the 3-point battle, or they at least tie their opponent there, they have a better chance of winning. They win 7 out of 11 games so far. So that's a good thing for San Antonio. They scored 60 paint points. So like I said, they weren't scared of that Rockets defense. They continued to attack them. They were very efficient in the paint. Actually, their most efficient night there. So they had a new season high 70% paint accuracy. They didn't get to the free throw line too much, but when they did get there, they shot their free throws well. They made 87% of their free throws. They got out and continued to attack the Rockets' defense with 21 fast break points. So we do want to note that the Rockets aren't a great defense. They're 28th entering this game. And then they didn't take that many shots, San Antonio. I think it was only 4 shots, but they made 75% of their mid-rangers, which is also a new season high. So they just had a great night, San Antonio, shooting the ball all over the floor. And then the not so good, really couldn't find much that was a negative for San Antonio's offense. You'd just be nitpicking at this point to find something negative. They had a great night offensively compared to how they had been playing. When we look at the defense, a lot of strengths here as well that they did well compared to their other games. For one thing, they held the Rockets below 30 points in 3 quarters. They hadn't really been doing that a lot, and so that was a big mark for them. Tom Osborne reported through Twitter for the San Antonio Express News. He reported that Pop said that that's something they worked on was their defense, so he was glad to see that they improved defensively tonight. And so again, you see that the fact that they don't usually hold an opponent below 30 points in 3 quarters of one game, and so they did that tonight. Houston struggled for the 3-point line, just 30 points from the 3-point line. They also shot just 34% from the 3-point line. They also struggled to make their shots in the paint when they did take them. So the Spurs' defense contested the rim well. Houston only made 53% of their paint shots. The Rockets didn't get to the free throw line too much, just 11 made free throws. They only scored 109 points. And then San Antonio's transition defense was really good. Just 4 fast break points for Houston. So a lot of their scoring had to come out of the half court. And then, like I mentioned, the Spurs had 7 blocks, which is a lot more than they usually get. The not so good for San Antonio's defense. The Rockets did end up scoring 62 paint points. Mainly shooting was a big problem there for the Spurs' defense. The Rockets, because they weren't shooting the ball, that great in this game, they got a lot more chances of offensive rebounds. So they ended up collecting 16 offensive rebounds. And then the Spurs, they're continuing to have this problem where they're not really, when they turn teams over, they're not really making the teams pay for those mistakes. And so they only scored 11 points off 14 turnovers. So again, that's something that we'll see if they are able to improve. But again, at least they got the win on this night. So where are the Spurs now through 25 games of the season? They are now 7-18. So they move back from 15th out west to now 14th out west. And they go from the 2nd worst record in the league to now the 4th worst record. So again, if you're looking at the lottery odds, you don't want to be 4th, but when the end of the season comes, you want to be at least in the bottom 3. They are now 4-10 at the AT&T Center and 3-16 against the Western Conference. And now to finish out this week, they have just one game left for this week. On Saturday, they go back on the road and they're going to be in Miami. Miami is struggling. They're under 500 right now at 12-14, and they are 10th in the East as I'm recording this video. So all in all, I mean, it was a good night for San Antonio. I mean, compared to 11 losses in a row and blowouts and things like that, this is a good game for them where it was competitive. Then they end up getting a huge lead. They hold on to the lead because remember they let go of a 20-point lead against OKC most recently during this losing streak. So yeah, so again, it's reset. We'll see now. For San Antonio, it's about getting the other key players healthy, getting Jakob healthy, getting Jeremy Sohan, and also getting Devin Vassell. So we'll see what happens going forward. But for this night, it was a successful night. So for Project Spurs, I am Paul Garcia. Have a great evening.